The moment I died wasn't as I had expected. There were no grand illuminations, no flickering images of past regrets, nor any frightening flashes of darkness. It felt like drifting into a deep sleep, peaceful, serene, and almost welcoming. It was only later that I learned I had experienced a severe aneurysm, but during that time I wasn't aware of anything other than an overwhelming sense of calm. The pain and fear that once haunted me seemed to vanish into nothingness. And in that stillness, something greater than I could have imagined beckoned me. When my senses slowly returned, I found myself in a place that was not of this world. The surroundings were so pure, so impossibly vivid, it was as though I had stepped into another dimension. Light flowed like liquid, enveloping everything around me. There was no sun, no source that I could see. It was as though the light itself existed simply because it was meant to be. And in that light, I felt no judgment, no fear, just an immense feeling of being held, of being known. Then I saw him, Jesus, but not in the way I had imagined him. No long robes, no halo, no images from Sunday school. Instead, he appeared as something much greater, a force of perfect love, radiating an undeniable peace. He looked at me with eyes that penetrated deeper than any glance I had ever felt. His presence was like an anchor, something that grounded me yet allowed me to float freely in his light. Every doubt I ever carried, every fear I ever had, seemed to melt away in his presence. "Welcome," he said, his voice like a gentle breeze that still carried the weight of eternity. The words weren't just heard. They were felt in my entire being, as if they resonated with the deepest part of me, speaking to something beyond my understanding. I opened my mouth to speak, to ask where I was, or if I had truly died. But before I could, Jesus smiled and answered, "You are here for a reason, but your journey is not yet over." He began to walk, and I instinctively followed. His steps were light, as though he didn't walk but glided. As we moved, I noticed the scene around us starting to change, shifting from the ethereal light to something more like a vision of the world I had left behind. Suddenly, I saw visions of Earth, the world as it would be in 2025. The sight was so clear, so overwhelming that it sent chills down my spine. It wasn't the world I knew. It was darker, grimmer, as though humanity was teetering on the edge of something disastrous. I saw cities in chaos, rising tensions between nations, people scrambling for resources, and the planet itself suffering from the wounds humans had inflicted. The oceans were rising, flooding coastlines, and strange, unsettling weather patterns had become the norm. People appeared distant, lost in their own struggles, and disconnected from one another in ways I had never imagined. I froze, unable to look away. "Is this what is coming?" I asked, my voice trembling. Jesus turned to me, his expression full of compassion, but also a quiet sorrow. "Yes, you are seeing the future if things continue as they are." I felt a knot in my stomach tighten. There was a heaviness in the air, as if the entire world was carrying a weight too great to bear. It was terrifying to witness. This was not the future I had hoped for. "But there is still time," Jesus said, as though answering my unspoken fears. "Time to change, time to turn back." His voice was not one of anger, but of desperate hope. He spoke of the responsibility humanity had to heal the earth, to reconnect with one another, and to remember the love that had been given to them. But he also spoke of something else, something that made my heart race. "The end will come," he said, "but not in the way many expect. The world will face trials, and many will be tested. Yet, there is hope. I show you this because it is not too late to make a difference. But know this, the choices made in the coming years will determine whether humanity flourishes or falls." The vision shifted again, and I found myself standing on a battlefield, not of war, but of choices. I saw people, families, communities, even leaders, standing at a crossroads. One path was filled with love and unity, with efforts to preserve the earth, heal relationships, and come together in faith. The other was a path of division, hatred, and self-destruction. I could see the struggle in the faces of the people, the weight of the decision they had to make. They didn't know which path to choose. Will they choose wisely? I asked, feeling the tension in my chest. It is not for me to say, Jesus replied, his eyes filled with sorrow. It is up to each soul. But know this, your prayers, your actions, your choices, they matter. They can change the course of what is to come. The urgency in his voice was unmistakable. The sense of impending doom was not simply a prophecy, it was a warning. Jesus didn't show me this vision to frighten me, but to awaken me to the truth of the power humanity held within itself. We could avoid the path of destruction, but it would take effort, collective action, compassion, and a return to love and faith. I could feel the heaviness of the world pressing down on me, and for a moment, I wanted to give in to despair. How could anything change in time? But then I remembered something Jesus had shown me earlier. The thread of light. When people prayed, when they reached out to one another in kindness and faith, those threads grew stronger. And with those threads, change was possible. It wasn't too late, but it would require each of us to act, to choose love over fear, faith over doubt. As I stood there contemplating what I had seen, I knew it was time to return. The vision was fading, and with it, the peace of Jesus' presence. But before I could ask him anything more, he looked at me with that same loving gaze. Remember, he said, you are not alone. The future is not set in stone. You have the power to change it, one act of love at a time. And just like that, I was back. My eyes opened, the world around me rushing back in, the noise of life and the weight of my responsibilities settling in. But something inside me had shifted. I couldn't forget what I had seen, what I had been shown. 2025 was coming, and it was up to all of us to choose which future we would create. I don't know what will happen in the coming years, but I do know this. Change starts with each of us. It's terrifying to realize how much is at stake, but it's also empowering to know that the future is in our hands. It's not too late to make a difference.